I say carry me along.
Rescue High Surf, all new next Monday at 9 on Fox.
Cedric the Entertainer! Oscar De La Hoya!
Who will be next when 5 new Titans clash?
'Cause baby, now we got bad blood. You know it used to be mad love.
Taylor Swift is my homie.
I absolutely know who this is. Fire!
The Masked Singer, all new Wednesday on Fox.
Doc is the show that every medical drama fan will love. Watch riveting episodes of Doc, available now on Hulu.
Now, your primetime local news leader. Fox 22 News at 10.
Governor Janet Mills says Maine's transgender athlete policies are worthy of a debate. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Beth Jones.
And I'm Devin Dagnall. Her comments come less than 2 weeks after a heated exchange with President Trump. Trump threatened to withhold federal funding to Maine unless the state complies with his executive order, which bars transgender athletes from women's sports. Governor Mills spoke with reporters today for the first time since that public exchange. Here's part of what she had to say when asked about the state's laws when it comes to transgender students in sports.
The legislative policy has been enacted. If they wish to change it, they have the authority to change it. But you don't change it by executive order or by wishing it differently.
Transgender athletes are allowed to compete in female sports in Maine under the state's Human Rights Act. Both Mills and Trump have vowed to take the issue to court. The Federal Office for Civil Rights has launched investigations into Maine's Department of Education and one school district.
In other news, a Norridgewock man charged with murder made his first court appearance this afternoon. 59-year-old Daniel Markey is accused of killing 38-year-old Christopher Nickerson over the weekend. State Police spokesperson Shannon Moss says the State Police Major Crimes Unit was called to a residence on the River Road in Norridgewock just before 9:30 Saturday morning. The Somerset County Sheriff's Office had received a 911 call reporting a shooting at the home. Moss says when deputies arrived, they found Nickerson deceased. He'd been staying at the residence. Moss says Markey lived at the home. He was arrested and charged with murder. He's currently being held at the Somerset County Jail without bail.
A Pittsfield man is also behind bars after an alleged robbery. 18-year-old Thomas Allen was arrested after police were called to A.E. Robinson in Pittsfield on Sunday for a report of a robbery and an attempted vehicle theft. Police say the female driver was still in the vehicle at the time of the alleged incident. According to police, it was alleged Allen threatened the use of a firearm. Officers located Allen at his home in Pittsfield. He is being charged with 2 counts of attempted robbery, criminal threatening, and violation of conditions of release.
A rollover accident in Bangor led to one person being arrested. 42-year-old Mark Flores of Cherryfield was arrested early Sunday morning after the car he was driving left the roadway and rolled over in the parking lot of the Circle K convenience store on the Hogan Road. Sergeant Jason McCambley says officers had been in a brief pursuit with Flores after he was seen running a stop sign and speeding on 2nd Street in downtown Bangor. McCambley says the pursuit was called off because of road conditions and the speeds involved. A few minutes later, they were called to the crash on Hogan Road. Police say no one was with the vehicle, but they checked hospitals and the nearby area. They found Flores behind a dumpster at the Circle K on Broadway. He's now facing numerous charges, including driving to endanger and leaving the scene of a crash, as well as eluding.
Doxing is the action of exposing someone's personally identifiable information online without their consent, such as their name, address, phone number, and bank account information. In Maine, no law currently exists surrounding doxing. One Maine lawmaker is looking to make it illegal for an adult to knowingly dox a minor. Our Augusta reporter Corey Bouchard has that story.
This is an issue that affects all children. This bill would protect all children.
Representative Melanie Sachs from Freeport is talking about her bill titled An Act to Prohibit the Doxing of a Minor and to Authorize Related Civil Action, which faced a public hearing in the Judiciary Committee on Monday. Representative Sachs says she wrote the bill after a minor transgender student athlete in her district was doxed and cyberbullied by a right-wing media entity, garnering national attention and death threats.
That harassment consisted of online social media, websites, and podcasts, and was repeated and quite vicious.
People at the hearing spoke in support of the bill, sharing the same message that we need to protect Maine children.
The intent is fear, intimidation, and harm. These extremist networks span the nation and sometimes the globe, and the negative attention and threats brought to these brave kiddos and their families are dangerous and life-altering.
This year, I became the target of doxing and online harassment after speaking in support of transgender youth mental health and the proposed school-based health clinic at school board meetings. These private details were then published online, including on an individual's X, formerly Twitter, account where my name was used to paint me as immature, incompetent, and disrespectful.
Nobody at the public hearing testified in opposition of the bill, which will now face a committee work session before being voted on by the full legislature. At the State House, I'm Corey Bouchard for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
A group of lobster fishermen can sue one of the world's largest seafood watchdog groups for defamation. That is the ruling of a federal judge. A federal court has ruled they can file suit over a report that described Maine lobster as an unwise choice for consumers. The threat to a rare species of whale getting tangled in fishing gear prompted Monterey Bay Aquarium in California to caution against eating a variety of lobster that New England fishermen have harvested for centuries. Seafood Watch, a conservation program operated by the aquarium, placed lobster from the U.S. and Canada on its Do Not Eat Red list in 2022. Some retailers pulled lobster from their stores after the recommendation. The court ruled against a request from the aquarium to toss out the lawsuit.
For many of us, the work of police canine teams is a world apart from what we do every day. But a violent standoff in Aroostook County in early February brought that work into painfully sharp focus. A police canine named Preacher put himself in harm's way and made the ultimate sacrifice. That was a month ago, and tonight we highlight the extraordinary partnership between a handler and their canine through the eyes of Sergeant Jonathan Russell and Preacher, how he's moving on, and the legacy Preacher has left behind. On a humid night in August of 2022, Maine State Police Sergeant Jonathan Russell first laid eyes on a then 14-month-old Belgian Malinois. That night is burned on Russell's memory.
He came out of there like he had been launched.
Russell says it was clear the dog was more than ready to get to work.
So instantly I'm optimistic. He comes out like he's spring-loaded and he's just ready to hit the ground running.
2 days later, they were off on a journey, officially a team in training. He named the dog Preacher.
He was an extremely quick learner because you really only had to introduce him to something 1 or 2 times, and then he'd be doing it like he'd done it hundreds of times.
Good boy. There you have it.
And over their 2.5 years together, they forged a unique partnership that became the constant in Russell's life, a relationship that only canine handlers truly understand.
But the work as a canine handler doesn't just stop when you sign 10-7 from your day at work. They're at home with you or they're at work with you, and pretty much everything that you do together.
Then on February 3rd, every canine handler's worst nightmare became reality when a domestic violence standoff in Portage Lake took an unthinkable turn. Preacher was deployed to apprehend a dangerous suspect who was trying to flee the scene and was shot in the abdomen. He died around 1 a.m. on February 4th on the side of I-95 as he was being rushed to a Brewer emergency clinic for a desperately needed blood transfusion. Sergeant Russell was right there with him, just as he'd always been, just as partners do. And in the days that followed, Sergeant Russell says he grappled with a painful question all too familiar to other handlers who've suffered the same loss.
And I'll be honest with you, I really, for the first couple days after this happened, I really wrestled with can I work another dog, and can I muster up the emotional strength to make the commitment that next dog is also going to deserve.
He's since answered that question with a resolute yes, saying that moving forward is a way to honor Preacher's memory.
No bond and no relationship with another canine partner will ever replace what Preacher and I had. Mm-hmm. You know, and Preacher and I's bond never replaced the bond that I had with my first dog.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's a new bond, and it's a new relationship that you formed.
Meanwhile, a powerful legacy is taking shape. A memorial fund in Preacher's honor has already garnered more than $13,000, which will go towards everything from canine protective vests and first aid kits to training equipment. And Russell says he feels Preacher's sacrifice has also helped raise awareness for how canines contribute to their communities.
To see the support and just the absolute thankfulness that so many people have for what Preacher did that night has been a really positive reminder of just the goodness of humanity, to be frank.
And though there is grief, Russell says pride in Preacher's work and gratitude are what he takes with him moving forward.
I could never be more proud and humbled to even have the opportunity to have spent any length of my time as a canine handler and quite frankly, a part of my life shared with him.
That was quite a story to get to do, very emotional. But really just an honor that Sergeant Russell would sit down with us and give us additional insight and talk about Preacher and really shed light. I mean, he's kind of a snapshot of what, dozens of canine teams, really hundreds of canine teams go through every year. I mean, unfortunately, this is not an anomaly. And so, but certainly our prayers are with him as he continues on this journey. And again, just our thanks for him being willing to talk with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, let's hit pause here and get a first check of our forecast.
Thank you very much, Beth. Our first weather tonight is brought to you by Old Town Redemption Center, offering a 10% bonus on your returnables and a monthly $100 drawing. Out there for tonight, we are seeing those clouds make their way into the southwestern portion of the state. A few of those clouds will make their way over Bangor for tonight. Going to see a partly cloudy sky. Going to stay dry, though. There is some snow to the west, but most of that is going to track into the Presque Isle region for tomorrow. More of those rain and snow chances will be here throughout the day Wednesday. Cooler day out there today, though, in those low to mid-20s here in Bangor, reaching 23 degrees, 24 in Bar Harbor, same for Rockland. Some areas trying to reach 30 in the southwestern portion of the state, but most of us in those upper 20s, with cooler temperatures up north in the teens for Holton and Clayton Lake at 19 degrees for their high today. Going into tonight, though, we're going to see those cool temperatures in here. Temperatures going to be in those mid-single digits with calm winds. Looks like cloud cover is going to increase by tomorrow morning. Beth?
Chase, thank you so much. And still to come on Fox 22 News at 10, the College of the Atlantic becomes the first campus to fully eliminate plastic foodware from their dining facilities.
And our Grace Blanchard was in Bangor to get the local opinion on daylight saving time. We'll have those stories and more local news when we return.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go, to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
R&K Variety is more than just a convenience store. With delicious homemade food made fresh daily. We offer hearty meals that don't break the bank. Whether it be our delicious chicken pot pie, one of our many savory soups, or a pizza, you can't go wrong at R&K Variety. Looking for a drink after a long workday? R&K Variety is an agency liquor store with an impressive selection. R&K Variety, more than just a convenience store. We're your neighbor, chef, barista, and friend. Stop by today.
We can go into a room and have absolutely nothing in there, nothing on the windows, no color, no character, no tone to a room.
That's, I think, where we're strongest, is being able to help someone envision what's going to go in that window.
And we leave, it's totally transformed into something that the customer wants it to be. We've often been told we make a room look better just by leaving it.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
The senior project of a student at College of the Atlantic is helping to break barriers by making the school the first in the country to fully eliminate single-use plasticware. Our Alex Schley explains.
This winter, College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor became the first campus in the country to eliminate disposable plastic foodware. The milestone was part of Linnea Go's senior project, which gives students the option to take food to go from the school's dining hall without the use of plastic dishware. According to the college, Go's project will keep over 50,000 pieces of disposable plastic out of waterways. Alex Freed, director of Atlas Zero Waste for the New England-based nonprofit Post Landfill Action Network, helped make this program a reality.
Students on college campuses are looking for solutions. We're starting to see these models emerge of institutions that are switching away from disposables at scale and switching to reusables and treating reusables the same way you treat a library book.
Go says the system relies on an app called Reusey.
One of the containers and look at the QR code sticker that's there. And then on my phone, press checkout, which will bring up a camera to scan.
The program then tracks which containers students have. And it doesn't stop there. Go says they also offer to-go coffee mugs, and that no other school with a similar program offers reusable to-go utensils.
And so he really wanted to have that be an option since utensils are still an issue.
Go says using the containers is completely free to all students. They ask that containers are returned within 3 days, but students are only charged if they aren't returned by the end of the semester. In Bar Harbor, I'm Alex Schley for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
Well, this Sunday marks the start of daylight saving time, and while some are looking forward to the extra hour of sunlight the change will bring, others want to put an end to this biennial cycle. Our Grace Blanchard shares more.
Clocks around the country will spring forward an hour this weekend as we revert back to daylight saving time.
I'm very excited about daylight saving time. I'm ready for the sun to be back out again.
It's pretty dreary during the winter time, so it's pretty exciting to get sunlight a lot longer.
However, not everyone is looking forward to the time change.
Our policy leaders should reassess the value in it and the benefits, and I haven't seen a really great argument recently for it.
Some Maine lawmakers want to put an end to the time change. 2 bills have recently been introduced to adopt Eastern Standard Time year-round.
But I think we were pretty consistent on our side that nobody wants to keep springing ahead and falling back.
Medical experts say the greatest impact of the seasonal time change is the disruption of sleep cycles.
People don't think much of what it could do, but believe it or not, as you can highlight it, it does have some influences on our bodily functions as well as overall mental health.
According to the chief medical officer for PCHC, health risks including heart attacks and strokes become greater in the first few days of the time change.
Over half of people following the time change will report fatigue, so being very tired. There's an increase in moodiness that often goes along with that.
If lawmakers move forward with the latest proposals, Maine would be the 3rd state to no longer observe daylight saving time.
I think it would be a change because we've had it for so long now.
It could go both ways for me.
I'll say get rid of daylight savings time.
In Bangor, Grace Blanchard, ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
Well, coming up on the 10 p.m. news on Fox 22, France and the UK are preparing to take the reins in negotiating a peace agreement with Ukraine.
And there are now 100 federal lawsuits against President Trump's policies. We'll have those stories and more as the 10 p.m. news on Fox 22 continues.
Blazing Trails, located in Lincoln, is your #1 trusted caregiver storefront. From personalized consultations to the highest quality product, Blazing Trails provides outstanding patient services to Eastern and Central Maine. Discover how we're blazing the trails to quality holistic medicine.
Come stop by Triple S Tag Shop, 315 Hamden Road, Carmel, for quality clothing and equestrian gear.
Family owned and operating in the Bangor area for more than 10 years. Crosby's Welding is here to help you. We specialize in steel, stainless steel, and aluminum welding and fabrication. We serve many of the local industries from Maine lobstermen to the commercial trucking industry and everything in between. Fully mobile on-site construction services right down to custom signs and fire pits. Fast, friendly, reliable service. Give us a call today for a free estimate, 974-7815.
Come bowl a few games here at Bangor Brewer Bowling Lanes. We're one of the only candlepin bowling alley centers in Maine, conveniently located in the heart of Brewer. You always have the opportunity to simply bowl for fun. However, you can also join a league. We have youth leagues, adult and senior leagues. Now don't forget, we also host birthday parties for under $100, and gift certificates are also available. Give us a call right away at 989-3798 to make reservations for your birthday party today.
Blazing Trails, located in Lincoln, is your #1 trusted caregiver storefront. From personalized consultations to the highest quality product, Blazing Trails provides outstanding patient services to Eastern and Central Maine. Discover how we're blazing the trails to quality holistic medicine.
There's one number you need to know. It's called Joe.
Welcome back. The White House tonight ramping up pressure on Ukraine to reach a ceasefire deal. Fox's Kevin Cork reports.
A senior White House official tells Fox News the U.S. will pause all military aid to Ukraine until the Ukrainians show a stronger commitment to working out a peace deal. This as European leaders try to carve out their own path toward a ceasefire, with Britain and France leading the charge. The UK's Prime Minister says he's open to sending troops to Ukraine to help keep the peace.
Britain will play a leading role, with, if necessary, and together with others, boots on the ground and planes in the air.
Both countries acknowledge the U.S. would likely still be needed as a part of a peacekeeping effort to ensure that a truce holds. That would, however, require a reset of U.S.-Ukraine relations after Friday's disastrous Oval Office meeting. The White House says it expects an apology from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has tried to keep open the door to repairing the relationship.
He's in a very difficult position. The war is not going well for Ukraine.
This weekend, Zelensky said he thinks a peace deal is still a long way away. That comment not sitting well with President Trump.
He better not be right about that. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long.
Amid the uncertainty, European leaders are looking to ramp up their own defense spending. In fact, the EU is set to hold an emergency summit on that very topic this coming Thursday. In Washington, I'm Kevin Cork, Fox News.
The question of whether President Trump can fire the head of special counsel's office is likely headed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it could have plenty of company. The president's efforts to reduce the federal payroll are being met with multiple legal and public challenges. Fox's Mike Emanuel takes a look.
We fight for you! CFPB!
Protesters gather outside U.S. District Court in Washington ahead of a critical hearing about the Trump administration's efforts to make major cuts at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Inside, U.S. District Court Judge Amy Berman Jackson said she's trying to get a clear picture of what is going on inside the agency. The judge, while skeptical of the government's claim of executive authority, telling both sides, quote, elections have consequences, and it's not for me to get in the middle and tell the government how to run an agency.
At the end of the day, it's going to be largely speed bumps, and their courts are not going to prevent the Trump administration from trying to dramatically reduce the size of the federal workforce.
Judge Jackson is also handling another case, a constitutional fight about whether President Trump can fire anyone he wants working inside the executive branch. Hampton Dellinger is the head of the Office of Special Counsel. His attorney argues Dellinger has a 5-year term under law and that his termination is unlawful since the Office of Special Counsel is independent. On Saturday, Jackson ruled against the government, allowing Dellinger to remain in his job. She has called this, quote, an extraordinarily difficult constitutional issue. The Trump administration immediately started the appeals process.
Proactive Trump administration litigation against some of these civil service rules, tying the president's hands. Union contracts in the public sector might violate executive control over the executive branch.
There are now about 100 federal lawsuits against Trump's policies, with 21 rulings already blocking the president's moves, at least temporarily. Much of this is likely heading to the Supreme Court in the months ahead. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Well, President Trump says tariffs against Canada and Mexico are ready to go as punishment for not doing enough to stop the flow of fentanyl coming into the country. Unless the president decides otherwise, those tariffs will take effect tomorrow. Fox's Caroline Shively with more.
Starting Tuesday, imports coming across the U.S. border from Canada or Mexico could face a 25% tariff, while the taxes on imports from China are set to double to 20%.
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
President Trump set a midnight deadline for the countries to slow illegal immigration and the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. or face the hefty tariffs. Mexico is waiting to see if Mr. Trump follows through after he backed off a similar threat in February, while Canada is preparing its own taxes on American goods.
There is no universe in which the government of Canada could not retaliate.
Democrats argue Trump's tariffs will trickle down to American consumers, and a new study from Anderson Economic Group finds they could increase car prices by up to $12,000.
These kinds of broad-based tariffs are only going to hurt American people.
A lot of people that did vote for him are going to wonder what's going on. Why is he implementing policies that are making my electricity bill go up?
Broader reciprocal tariffs are set to go into effect April 2nd, equaling the tariffs other countries place on American goods.
Ask the question, why are we doing this? It's because the world cheats us.
White House officials say the president could implement tariffs on Canada and Mexico Tuesday, but at a lower rate than 25%. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
The number of measles cases linked to a West Texas outbreak continues to grow. Now, health officials are renewing their push for people to get vaccinated against the virus. Fox's Jared Halpern has more.
Federal health officials are shipping more vaccines to Texas as the state deals with its largest measles outbreak in 30 years. Nearly 150 cases have been reported so far, and that number is expected to grow.
It's something that, you never expect to happen, especially so close to where you live.
The Department of Health and Human Services says it's sending 2,000 doses of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, as well as lab support to help track the virus. In an opinion piece for Fox News Digital, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been skeptical of vaccines in the past, voiced support for the MMR shots, though he did not explicitly recommend them, writing, quote, "The decision to vaccinate is a personal one. Vaccines not only protect individual children from measles, but also contribute to community immunity."
That area of the country has a very low vaccination rate, and the problem with measles is it is the most contagious respiratory virus on the planet.
Most doctors agree that low vaccination rates are driving up the number of cases. According to the CDC, most states sit below the 95% vaccination threshold for kindergartners, that level needed to protect communities against measles outbreaks.
For children and adults who are fully vaccinated, that vaccine is about 97% efficacious.
The CDC says at least 8 other states have reported measles cases this year, including California, Georgia, and New York. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Well, still to come on Fox 22 News at 10, our Jody Hersey was in Bangor to highlight a local songwriter.
And in sports, the high school hoops tourney is all wrapped up, but playoff basketball is not, as Husson prepares for the D3 NCAA tournament this weekend. We'll be right back.
Start your day with Good Morning Maine. Weekday mornings starting at 6 on Fox 22.
Paramount Paving, Maine's go-to for all your paving and seal coating. Paramount Paving offers commercial and residential paving and seal coating services throughout eastern and central Maine. Give us a call for a free estimate today. Paramount Paving. When it comes to paving, we are Paramount.
Bring your new kitchen to life with help from the Kitchen, Bath, and Flooring Division by Hammond Lumber Company. Bring in your ideas or get inspired by Hammond's extensive showroom displays. Your Hammond sales rep will help you create a materials list and cost estimate, and Hammond's designers will help you visualize your space before the work begins. And Hammond delivers from 22 locations across Maine and New Hampshire. Your new kitchen begins when you bring your vision to Hammond Lumber Company, your building project partner.
At US Cellular, you don't have to choose between a great deal on the phone you want and the phone plan that's right for you.
You can get both. 4 free phones of your choice and 4 lines for just $90.
Wow, kids, that's like us not having to choose between tickets to wrestling or that puppet musical.
We want a great phone and a great plan too, don't we, little guy?
Get both. 4 free phones of your choice plus 4 lines for $90. No trade-in needed. U.S. Cellular, built for us.
Don't get cold feet this winter. Stay warm and dry with high-performance footwear from Comfort Shoes and More. With an extensive selection of winter boots rated from 0 to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you'll find comfort in knowing your feet will be warm in any weather. Discover the latest in functional and fashionable footwear with grippers built right into the sole, with boots in stock up to 6E and size 17 for men and women. Take the drive to Newport for a sit and fit to find your perfect fit. You and your feet will be glad you did.
Fires, floods, burst pipes. Disasters happen, but the mess they leave behind doesn't have to last. For 40 years, Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration has been there to help Mainers get back to the closest to normal as they can. When your property is at its worst, Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration is at their best, and they have been for 4 decades. Put your trust in the Bouchard team. Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration. You keep the memories, we'll handle the rest.
Paramount Paving, Maine's go-to for all your paving and seal coating. Paramount Paving offers commercial and residential paving and seal coating services throughout eastern and central Maine. Give us a call for a free estimate today. Paramount Paving. When it comes to paving, we are Paramount.
The First Lady is pushing Congress to take action against so-called revenge porn. In particular, experts say there's been a rise in explicit images created by AI, which can rapidly spread online before the victim even knows they're out there. Fox's Mike Emanuel reports.
First Lady Melania Trump making the trip to Capitol Hill Monday, urging lawmakers to pass the Take It Down Act.
This legislation is essential for addressing the growing concerns related to online safety.
The bill would make it a crime to post non-consensual, intimate imagery online, whether it's real or AI-generated, sometimes referred to as deep fakes. The legislation would also require social media companies to take those images down within 48 hours.
No more time than that, no more excuses. If not, big tech then will be just as guilty as the aggressors.
Over the past few years, sexually explicit deepfakes of both celebrities and private citizens have spread online. Accompanying the First Lady were victims of revenge porn who shared their stories to drive home the urgency of the legislation.
I felt responsible and began to blame myself and was ashamed to tell my parents despite doing nothing wrong.
The shame, the violation, the loss of control, it all consumes you. We have the legislation to create accountability. Now we need the will to act.
It is the First Lady's first major policy initiative since the start of her husband's second term in office. During the first Trump administration, she took aim at stopping cyberbullying online. And during the presidential campaign, she indicated a desire to push for stronger protections for overall online safety. The bill has already unanimously passed the Senate, but it's still awaiting a vote in the House. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
The Trump administration's cost-cutting measures are sweeping through more federal agencies, cutting jobs and programs as they go. Today, we're expecting to learn more about DOGE's finding at the Department of Defense as outrage grows over the firing of hundreds of weather workers at NOAA. Fox's Caroline Shively has more from Washington.
Don't negotiate. Forecasters at the National Weather Service are among the latest government employees to get doged.
Hands off NOAA!
Protesters gathered outside NOAA headquarters in Maryland Monday as DOGE buyouts and the firing of probationary workers shrink the department by hundreds of positions across the country.
They let us know that a hurricane is moving in one direction or another in its intensity. They make sure that we know if there are tsunamis coming toward our shores. They save lives.
Across the river in Virginia, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is now telling civilian employees they have until Tuesday to email their bosses 5 things they accomplished last week.
Just a pulse check. Are you there out to DoD civilians?
The military plans to shrink its civilian workforce around the world by 5 to 8%, beginning with more than 5,000 probationary workers. Democrats warn the Defense Department is preparing to fire more than 70,000 civilian employees.
I think we need to cut out waste, fraud, abuse, and I'd start with the Pentagon. But I do not believe in this MediaX approach.
Republican leaders continue to defend the cuts.
The things that make sense to American taxpayers and that follow common sense will be sustained and supported and funded, but that the fraud, waste, and abuse will not.
The Social Security Administration could be next. The agency reportedly plans to lay off at least 7,000 of its 60,000 workers. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Well, South Carolina declared a state of emergency Sunday as wildfires in the Carolinas and Georgia scorched thousands of acres and forced people to flee their homes. Fox's Jonathan Seri has more from Horry County, South Carolina.
We're seeing some stuff that really we hadn't seen in a while.
There are at least 10 active wildfires burning in the Carolinas and Georgia as crews work to get containment and save homes. The rare East Coast wildfires erupted over the weekend. South Carolina was the hardest hit, more than 175 fires reported on Sunday. The largest is near Myrtle Beach in the Carolina forest area. More than 1,600 acres burned so far, forcing some residents to evacuate.
I had my brother call me and tell me to look out the back window, and I no more hung up from him when I've got a police officer knocking on my door.
Red Cross shelters are open across the area, including in Polk County, North Carolina, where a wildfire that's burned 500 acres is only 30% contained. First responders are now applying lessons from hurricane relief, giving folks a safe place to ride out the wildfires while they wait to see if their homes will survive.
We offer, a safe place to sleep. We have meals. We have, a good place for people to just come and stay here.
Despite the danger, most residents are remaining optimistic, pointing to a cold front that's expected to bring rain to the area by Tuesday.
I think that we're going to be safe, and I also think that the house is going to be safe because I trust in our fire department that they'll keep our homes and people safe.
South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster has declared a state of emergency and deployed the National Guard to assist in the firefighting. In Horry County, South Carolina, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
All right, well, coming up, we have our full 5-day forecast.
It is that time of the year where the seasons are fighting and we see many chances for rain and snow. We're going to see that Wednesday, but we're going to see one type of precipitation more than the other. Which will that be? I'll have the answers coming right up.
You live in vacation land, right? Then get out and vacation, why don't you? And do it in style by renting an RV from Maine Campo Rentals. Fully furnished, fully insured, ready to roll out and explore. Or maybe you have relatives visiting you. Save your marriage, save the hotel expense, put them up in an affordable RV from Maine Campo Rentals. We'll deliver to Acadia and local campgrounds too. Call or visit online at MaineCampoRentals.com. Put away that cell phone and discover vacation land with Maine Campo Rentals in Brewer.
Rowell's Garage has been serving customers in the greater Dover-Foxcroft region since 1946. Our goal is not just selling you a vehicle, but also giving you quality service to maintain your vehicle at peak performance. Browse our inventory online or in person. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, we can put you in the vehicle that is right for you. Sales, service, and parts. Rowell's Garage, doing business the right way every day.
Tired of your internet service constantly letting you down? Those other providers may promise the world with their flashy advertisements, but are you truly having a good customer experience? Fear not, because there's a new player in town. Introducing GoNet Speed. No more endless hold times or automated responses. We're here to listen, support, and provide you with the exceptional service you deserve. Our fast, reliable fiber internet, it's mind-blowing. Let us show you what true internet satisfaction feels like.
Great Scott! This is Green Bear 420 in 2010. What kind of trip is this? I gotta get back to 2023. Wait, it's 2015. So much has changed. In 2023, we had a lot more glass, t-shirts, and novelties. It's gonna take a bolt of lightning to get me home. Finally, home at last. Now Green Bear 420, Green Bear Green Care is bigger and better than ever. To be continued.
The Super Bowl's coming to town.
This restaurant is festering.
I'm amazed you haven't killed anybody.
Kitchen Nightmares, Road to Super Bowl 59. All new Tuesdays on Fox.
Thank you very much. For highs out there today, looking at 23 degrees here in Bangor, a cooler day, but we saw lots of sunshine. We saw those mid-20s by Bar Harbor and Rockland, and some areas trying to reach 30 degrees, but not quite. Most of us in those upper 20s in the southwestern portion of the state for today. As we can see up north, it was cooler. Low 20s for Millinocket, Greenville at 18 degrees, 19 in Holton, and 20 degrees in Presque Isle for today, with a lot of sunshine still out there. But for tonight, partly cloudy skies. We're having a little bit of cloud cover move into the southwestern portion of the state. We're hitting our lows very quick. Within the next hour or so, we'll be in those single digits, and then we will start to see those temperatures slowly rise throughout the night, as we'll have a system on its way by tomorrow. Going to be much warmer tomorrow. Expect temperatures close to 40 degrees, most likely those mid to upper 30s here in Bangor. Same for the coastal regions as well. We will see some areas trying to hit 40 degrees in the southwestern portion of the state. Temperatures are going to be a lot more closer to freezing in Millinocket, Clayton Lake, and Caribou, right around 31 to 32 degrees. That average high this time of year is now above freezing in those mid 30s. We're looking at 36 degrees for the average high. Tomorrow we're going to be a little bit above that, but way above that for Wednesday and the Thursday, getting close to 50 degrees on Thursday. And it looks like Wednesday night through Thursday, those temperatures are barely going to change. Our lows could be in the mid 40s. So really warming up, but cooling off Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday. Monday next week does look like the B will be right near 40 degrees once again, with some warmer temperatures getting close to 50 in the next few days after that. So out there for tonight, light and variable winds, as you can see, but picking up tomorrow, right around 9 a.m., there will be some gusts over 20 miles per hour in Bar Harbor, only close to 10 to 15 here in Bangor. It'll be like that throughout much of the afternoon. Not going to deal with too much wind for tomorrow, but tomorrow night, there is a chance for some 30-mile-per-hour gusts near Bar Harbor, so just be safe if you're going to be planning on being out on the water or near the coastline as well. All right, so out there for today, lots of sunshine, but now we are getting that cloud cover making its way into the southwestern portion of the state. It looks like a whole ton of snow is on the way, but most likely it's going to track to the north. A few scattered snow showers up near Presque Isle for tomorrow afternoon. Other than that, we are going to stay dry, and we won't be seeing any precipitation until we get into Wednesday. So we actually will see it tomorrow night, but this is going to be likely heading into the system for Wednesday. There's that rain and snow chance here in Bangor. It could be a wintry mix as well. Got to be careful about that, but more snow is going to be in the northern and central portions of the state. Now here comes Wednesday morning, when all this rain is going to be making its way in with temperatures high into the 40s. Yes, that's what we're going to see, is a lot of rain. We'll see that tracking early in the morning and throughout the afternoon into Thursday night as well, and that rain will be heavy at times. How much rain are we going to see? Well, we're going to see well over an inch, getting close to 1.25 inches here in Bangor. We're going to see over that. Many areas from Bangor into Millinocket all the way down into Augusta are going to see right around 1.25 inches of rain, with some heavier amounts to the east. Machias seen over 1.5 inches of rain. Definitely going to see that close to Bar Harbor as well, so definitely going to get a lot of rain out of this system. Lows for tonight, right around 6 degrees, partly cloudy skies. Winds are calm for right now, but for tomorrow, picking up a little bit from the southwest. Our highs are going to try to reach for 40, but we are going to be sitting at 38 degrees with some increasing clouds for tomorrow. Here is our extended forecast. We can see rain is going to be likely for Wednesday, going into Thursday morning hours as well, that high reaching 49 degrees. Cooling off, though, by Friday with decreasing clouds and that high at 30 degrees. Beth?
Thank you, Chase.
Sports is next with Tyler Cruz.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Master anything with the fastest wireless speeds from Spectrum.
R&K Variety is more than just a convenience store. With delicious homemade food made fresh daily, we offer hearty meals that don't break the bank. Whether it be our delicious chicken pot pie, one of our many savory soups, or a pizza, you can't go wrong at R&K Variety. Looking for a drink after a long workday? R&K Variety is an agency liquor store with an impressive selection. R&K Variety, more than just a convenience store. We're your neighbor, chef, barista, and friend. Stop by today.
Your favorite restaurants were half off. It's half off dining from Fox 22 and ABC 7. Go to foxbangor.com, click on half off dining, and start saving now.
Discover the charm of Warren's Waterfront Restaurant, Fox Sports' only waterfront dining. Relax in a cozy atmosphere where every visit feels like home. Indulge in fresh, flavorful dishes paired with stunning river views. Join us at Warren's Waterfront, your perfect escape.
Great restaurants from all over Eastern Maine at half off dining from Fox 22 and ABC 7.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust. We get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
I don't know what I did or who I am now, but I will be a doctor again.
Doc, all new, Tuesdays on Fox.
Welcome back in, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. The 2025 Maine High School Basketball Tournament has come and gone, and what a two-week stretch it was. But the playoff basketball is far from over. Husson Men's Hoops is preparing for their second straight NCAA tournament appearance. They're looking for some history. The Eagles winning back-to-back North Atlantic Conference championships with a huge 90-59 win over VSU Johnson this past weekend. Husson heads into the tournament with a 21-7 record. They take on the Engineers from Worcester Polytech, or WPI. The Eagles are currently on a 9-game winning streak, and they say the resilience of this group has gotten them to where they are now.
I think our team is just super resilient. I think we've been battling injuries all year. I think it's just a next guy up mentality. We all believe in each other, and the coach's plans for us.
We started out 2-5, and then we've gone 19-2 in the last 21 games. And 2 games we've lost, we didn't have Riles due to injuries. So if you look at the injuries we've had, the next guy's just stepped up, and we've just kind of played at that level of we're going to get it done anyway, and put things together in the last 2.5, 3 weeks playing our best basketball.
A lot of key guys on this squad were also on the team last year when Husson took on the 8th-ranked team in the nation in NYU in the first round. This year, they get a much closer destination heading to Worcester. The Engineers are the host, and with a good group of upperclassmen, they're hoping to make some noise on Friday night.
Like, a lot of us were there for last year's first round game, and I think we want to make history this year. You know, we got a little taste of it, and I think we're hungry to, go make some noise in the tournament.
We've got four really good seniors that lead us every day, and not only in their play, but their mindset and how they approach their day-to-day habits. And so that's a great place to start when you've got seniors that are locked in.
Husson has now been to 10 tournaments in the last 15 years. That game tips off at 5:30 on Friday. Staying on the hardwood, like we mentioned, the Maine High School Hoops Tournament coming to a close on Saturday evening, sadly. And once again, it was an excellent tournament, as it always is, and a big congratulations to all of our champions and all of the teams that competed to make their communities proud. It was a big weekend for the South teams. The South swept the Class A Gold Ball with Falmouth boys defeating Messalonskee and the Mount Ararat girls taking down Hamden Academy. On Saturday, the South also swept Class D. The Valley girls and the St. Dom's boys each won their first titles in program history. The North had a great showing in Portland for the Class B games. Once again, the Caribou Vikings taking home the gold ball, capping off a 21-1 season. It's their third in the past 6 tournaments. And the Vikings making the home crowd happy, with the girls taking home the title in an overtime thriller, scoring 4 points in the final 2 seconds to take the lead and the victory. That is their first gold ball in program history as well.
My 2 older brothers came here 6 years ago in 2019, and they won the first state championship in 50 years. And just being back here and being able to do it as a team was just crazy. Such a great feeling.
And back in Bangor, Class C was a split. The Roadrunners boys from Mount Abram came out hot out of the gates and used that fast start to take down Mattinock Academy. But for the girls, it was all Penobscot Valley. The Howlers capping off a perfect season. They came out on a 24-2 run and never looked back. They take their first ever gold ball back up to Howland.
It's amazing, honestly. We've been through so much together, so being able to bring this home to them, and celebrate with them is just a great way to end it.
It's awesome. We were never going to settle for less than this, and we weren't going to be happy if this wasn't the outcome.
Congratulations to them and all of our champions. Onto the ice now, Maine men's hockey hosting senior weekend this past weekend, and it was a good one. The Black Bears sweeping their final home weekend of the regular season with 2 big wins over Vermont. Maine was dominant on Friday for a 4-1 win over the Catamounts, and on Saturday, that offense kept rolling with 4 more goals and a 4-3 victory on senior day. Leading the way for Maine, especially on Thursday, was transfer senior forward Taylor McCarr. McCarr netted the first 3 goals of the game for Maine on Friday, an early hat trick in the third period, the first 2 coming on the power play. He was the only player in the nation with a hat trick last week. Good for Hockey East Player of the Week. That's his first time winning the award. The Black Bears are back in action at UMass on Friday. After 70-plus years of Bangor East Little League and Bangor West Little League, the 2 organizations will now merge to become one. Those 2 will now be one league known as Bangor Little League, effective this season. Leaders say it's been a long time coming. They said over the years their numbers have decreased, so consolidating made sense. They also say combining the 2 teams will actually mean more opportunities for the players.
We can create different opportunities for different skill levels. So we're going to be able to add different levels of, for example, minors baseball. So we're going to have an in-house developmental league, and then we can move on to a travel league that allows players to compete against local towns at a more competitive level.
Registration is now open for Bangor Little League, and partial and full scholarships are available. We have a link to this story on our website at foxbangor.com. That is all the time we have for sports. We'll be right back after the break.
At Old Town Redemption Center, we are always ready to help with any fundraisers or bottle drives. We are here to help our community. Like and follow us on Facebook for upcoming weekly holiday giveaways and our monthly $100 drawing.
At Spectrum, we believe every day unlocks unlimited possibilities to bring you closer to the people and places you love. Spectrum transforms your gaming experience into a galaxy of adventures. And with the fastest, most reliable internet, you're always front row to the entertainment you love, no matter where you are. Get Spectrum Internet Premier for $30 per month when bundled, plus a 3-year price guarantee. Call 1-833-440-0029. Spectrum Internet puts streaming live TV, sports, and popular apps all at your fingertips.
Family owned and operating in the Bangor area for more than 10 years. Crosby's Welding is here to help you. We specialize in steel, stainless steel, and aluminum welding and fabrication. We serve many of the local industries from Maine lobstermen to the commercial trucking industry and everything in between. Fully mobile on-site construction services right down to custom signs and fire pits. Fast, friendly, reliable service. Give us a call today for a free estimate, 974-7815.
Come bowl a few games here at Bangor Brewer Bowling Lanes. We're one of the only candlepin bowling alley centers in Maine, conveniently located in the heart of Brewer. You always have the opportunity to simply bowl for fun. However, you can also join a league. We have youth leagues, adult and senior leagues. Now don't forget, we also host birthday parties for under $100, and gift certificates are also available. Give us a call right away at 989-3798 to make reservations for your birthday party today.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
At Old Town Redemption Center, we are always ready to help with any fundraisers or bottle drives. We are here to help our community. Like and follow us on Facebook for upcoming weekly holiday giveaways and our monthly $100 drawing.
Having a hard time breathing.
Try putting your arms above
your head. Up, Robin. The Masked Singer, Lucky Season 13, all new Wednesdays on Fox.
Ridley Scott's historical epic, a Marvel villain origin story, and a global superstar are among the new digital and DVD releases available to add to your home library. Fox's Ashley Dvorkin runs down the list of what's new in home entertainment.
Did you hear that crowd?
Ridley Scott's epic Gladiator 2 tops the list of what's new in home entertainment. The sequel stars Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Pedro Pascal. Set 15 years after the original, the film follows Lucius, a young gladiator who enters the Colosseum after the emperors of Rome conquer his home.
Tell me about this hunter.
Aaron Taylor Johnson transforms into one of Marvel's iconic villains in Kraven the Hunter. The R-rated action-adventure tells the origin story of the Russian huntsman, whose complex relationship with his father leads him on a revenge-fueled mission to become the world's greatest and most feared hunter.
Santa Claus has been kidnapped?
Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons, and Lucy Liu star in Red One, a holiday action comedy about a mission to save Santa Claus after he's kidnapped from the North Pole.
No one gets over on me.
Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. return for Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. The sequel has Butler's detective Nick O'Brien hunting down Jackson Jr.'s Donnie Wilson in Europe. The chase begins after Wilson gets involved with a crew plotting to rob the world's largest diamond exchange. For music fans, rising singer-songwriter Mackenzie Carpenter releases her debut album, Hey Country Queen. Jennie of the K-pop group Blackpink drops her first solo record, Ruby. And global superstar Lady Gaga unleashes mayhem. Her 7th album featuring released songs Disease, Die With a Smile, and Abracadabra. In Hollywood, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
Well, even though the temperatures are still below freezing outside, there's never really a bad time to treat yourself to a banana split or some soft-served ice cream. And some people who might know that better than anyone else is the team over at Jimmy's Ice Cream and Grill in Brewer, who just opened up for the season. Jimmy's manager, Grace Mylan, says it's tradition to reopen during the first week of March. The announcement was officially made on the Jimmy's Ice Cream and Grill Facebook page this morning. Jimmy's Ice Cream and Grill is open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Well, Joe Pickering Jr. of Bangor is a talented songwriter, and at 83 years old, he plans to continue penning tunes for as long as he can. Our Jody Hersey has more.
Paul Bunyan was taller than a main pine tree.
83-year-old Joe Pickering Jr. is a songwriter and music publisher who always has lyrics running through his head.
And I've got a funny bone. I like to write funny songs, but I also write very serious songs about people who have made a difference in people's lives.
Pickering's written about Maine baseball player Louis Sockalexis and Maine lumberjack Paul Bunyan.
Well, Paul was king of lumber when lumber was king.
Pickering says lawmakers and congressional leaders could learn a lot from this larger-than-life lumberjack, especially in today's political climate.
America needs Paul Bunyan courage. Our leaders need it, and and the people need to demand that America be greater than it is.
Pickering wrote the ballad of Paul Bunyan back in the 1990s. He and his song are featured on one of the kiosks near the Paul Bunyan statue on Main Street in Bangor. Parks and Recreation Director Tracy Willett says it's a really nice touch to the area.
So we're hopeful that visitors here to the statue can get a good sense of why Paul came to be here in Bangor and some of the history of Paul Bunyan and logging here in Bangor.
Pickering plans to continue writing songs and making them available on his website, kingoftheroadmusic.com.
Paul Bunyan is a wonderful inspiration for laughter. And by God, America needs laughter today.
In Bangor, I'm Jody Hersey for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Well, that is going to do it for us tonight. From everyone here at Fox 22 News, take care and have a great rest of your evening.
We'll see you later.
For more local news coverage, switch over to our sister station, ABC7, right now for ABC7 News at 11.
You know that look. She's concerned about you. She can tell that you're depressed,
Your intimate sex life isn't what it once was, but it's more than that. You seem tired all the time, you don't have the strength and endurance you once had, and you're depressed, unenthusiastic about life, because these days you're having a hard time just living your life. This could be the same issue that so many men like you face, erectile dysfunction, and it has negative effects on much more than just your love life. The good news is that there's a treatment for that. It's the little blue pill. The bad news is that the little blue pill is expensive, and it may just be way over your budget to take it. Here at Steel Man Pills, we now have an affordable alternative to the little blue pill that can not only help you return to the love life you once had, but also help you regain the lust for life and self-confidence that you've been missing. And it's available right now for as little as $3 a pill. Just listen to this story from an actual user.
When I took Sildenafil for the first time, to my surprise, it lasted a whole day, and the next day on and off. My wife told me she felt like she was on cloud 9, and I must admit at 69 going on to 70, I felt in my 30s. I highly recommend this.
And now, if you call the number on your screen, you can get this life-changing medication for an unprecedented low price.
Why are you here? You ain't seen nothing yet. If anything does come out,
you're gonna end things with me.
100%.
He says I accidentally slept with Dakota before I knew he and Taylor were together.
Whoa, 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 like this is crazy.
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives season finale next Monday after The Bachelor on
This is ABC 7 News at 11.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining.